Good morning, and Happy New Year! Happy New Year to you on this beautiful sunny day from Texas. I guess I'm gonna be opening another can of worms today on this beautiful New Year's Day. And regardless of that, I wish you a Happy New Year. From Fort Stockton, Texas, there is the Texas flag. Every Bible scholar should know that January is not the first month of the year. And January 1st is not the first day of the year, according to the Bible. Open the Bible at the book of Genesis. And as it tells you the days of creation, on the fourth day, when the sun and the moon and the stars were created. Yeah, that was the fourth day of creation. After creating those heavenly bodies, God had to set them in motion, right? Just to regulate according to the scriptures. It says, I believe it's verse 14, where it says, to regulate the day and the year, to regulate the seasons, besides giving lights. All this was created to regulate. As we see it today, indeed, although we can see those nasty clouds again, I've seen some airplanes earlier drawing those lines, how they create this geoengineering, that mass, that really ridiculous pollution of the environment, carbon footprint. This is the real problem. Not the cars, not the trucks, but this is the real problem, how they change the environment. And of course, these clouds will become much worse. As we can see them spreading now, the lines, they don't disappear, they just spread out. Then they create thicker clouds and of course more lines to come. And then they start drawing them across. Anyway, today is the first day of the new year, and Happy New Year to every truth seeker, to every sincere Bible student, Bible scholar. I wish you a Happy New Year. And today is the 21st of March 2023. 21st of March 2023. The first day of the first month. How do I know that? I know that from the Bible. Because when God created the sun and the moon and the stars, anyway, let's focus on the sun and the moon, because that's what regulates the day and the time, which is the year, and including the months, of course. The years don't exist without the months. He had to set that heavenly bodies in motion, right? What we see today, how they move, how they regulate. This is basically what the scripture says. They are regulating the days. They are regulating the years and the seasons. So there is a great importance how God set them in motion. According to the scriptures, today is the first day of the first month, because it was just a few hours ago, yesterday afternoon, late afternoon, when about the time when the sun was already at 4:24 p.m. on the 20th of March, 4:24 p.m. toward evening time, yesterday afternoon, that sun came over the equator of the earth and entered into the northern hemisphere. A celestial movement. Nobody, only God can regulate, only God can put into existence. And that's what we were witnessing yesterday. If you want to put it that way, of course we do not worship the sun, but that was the birthday of the sun, because when the sun was created on the fourth day, and was set into a motion with the moon together, the sun had to enter either the northern hemisphere over the equator or the southern hemisphere over the equator. Which way do you think God ordained that for the sun to start moving? On the day of the creation of the sun could have not moved any other way except to enter into the northern hemisphere over the equator. That's how God has ordained the sun. That's how the sun started moving, and that is the vernal equinox, which we observe every year. The immovable signpost, which nobody can mess with. The first day of the first month, because the scripture says the evening and the morning were the first days. Doesn't matter which day we pick out of the 7. The evening and the morning were the first days. Just like at the creation of the sun and the moon and the stars, according to the scriptures, from yesterday evening until this day evening, this is the first day of the first month. I wish you a happy new year to all of you. And it is very significant. It is very significant because if we do not know the correct first day of the first month, we cannot observe the 10th day of the first month, when according to the scriptures it's a very significant move, right? When the sacrificial lamb is set aside according to the ceremonial law, which by the way was nailed to the cross, right? We still have to know when the 10th day of the first month is. We still have to know it correctly. And the 14th day of the first month is also very important. When the sacrificial lamb was sacrificed according to the ancient Jewish ceremonial laws. And if we do not know the first day of the first month correctly, how can we be exact with the 10th day when the sacrificial lamb, the immaculate lamb, needs to be set aside? Or how can we be exact with the 14th day when the sacrificial lamb was offered? And even though we do not practice these ordinances any longer, ever since they were nailed to the cross, but we still have to know, according to the scriptures, the time of the unleavened bread, the Passover time, when the angel of death passed over those homes which did not have the blood of the lamb on the doorpost. The correct time of the Passover, when the children of Israel came out of Egypt, that is like a birthday, just like the birthday to the sun or your own birthday. That does not change. That always remains every year. If somebody's birthday is on, for example, on January 28th, that is the correct time every year. When January 28th comes around, that individual will celebrate her or his birthday, correct? But if we do not know that day correctly, we cannot calculate the rest of the days. We cannot really observe everything else what was given for truth and knowledge in regards of the whole year. Practically the whole year rotates around the first day of the first month. So if we do not know that correctly, how can we observe? How can we celebrate the rest? We cannot. So it is very important that God is giving us an immovable signpost that nobody can mess around with, that comes around the same time every year, and it plays out the same way every year. And nobody can manipulate, nobody can explain away, and nobody can gainsay. So this is very important, how we must have an immovable signpost for truth and knowledge. And we have that. When we have that, the truth shall set you free. Isn't that the promise what God is giving to us? Yes, it is a promise. The truth shall set you free. When you know it, ye are happy when you do them. That's what the scripture says. So, Happy New Year to you. I know it's opening a can of worms, but I can do no otherwise. Anything to do with Christianity, anything to do with truth, is always opening a can of worms. A can of worms is always opened when somebody speaks the truth and somebody stands up for the truth. A can of worms is always opened because it is very inconvenient. If it is not inconvenient for this group of people, it is inconvenient for those quasi-Christians who celebrate the New Year right after Christmas, who make a big business out of not only the New Year but also Christmas, especially about Christmas. So it is very inconvenient for all these people. And probably one of my next segments is going to talk about Christmas. What a heathen worship day that is, which the quasi-Christians picked for celebrating the birthday of Christ, which is again a false holiday, and it should not be celebrated by Christians. So that is one thing. And the other thing is how these things are overlooked, so overlooked and so neglected. And people say not to worry about these things, and people say it's not important anymore. But again, if we do not know the first day of the first month, how can we calculate the rest? So important. The 10th day of the first month, the 14th day of the first month, 10th day of the 7th month, and the rest of the celebrations. This year we are not that far, or I should say the Jewish calendar is not that far from the real biblical Moses' calendar, because they will celebrate the first day of the first month tomorrow. Tomorrow at sundown, when according to one of the Jewish calendars, they also don't have one all unified counting of the time by the months and by the days and by the year. So this year the Jewish calendar will start tomorrow at sundown, so they are basically 2 days off this year. Usually they are more off than this year, but this year they are only 2 days off from the truth. Almost saved, but entirely lost if they don't come to the light of the truth, if they don't admit their mistakes. And that's one of the hardest things to do for human beings, to admit their wrongs, to admit their mistakes, and to accept the new light, to accept the truth, and to accept it when it is knocking on their door. That's not an easy thing to do. Seriously, it's not. But we must do it. We all must do it when that happens. We all must do that, to forsake everything else. We have many, many things to unlearn and many things to learn. God bless.